What is a weird childhood memory you have that you don't know whether it's true or not? When I was about 3 or 4 years old, my brother managed to get his head stuck in the scrollwork of an iron wood banister at a hotel. In the ensuing panic, I wandered off and stumbled upon a room filled with an amazing array of cookies and candy. I couldn't resist and began indulging in the sweet treats. Suddenly, a really angry adult yelled at me and carried me out of the room. I later found out that my parents claimed it never happened, but to this day, I believe I crashed a wedding or bar mitzvah's dessert table while my brother was being extracted from the banister. LOL. It's funny how things like getting your head stuck in a railing can happen to anyone. My brother got his head stuck in a railing once too, but it was at our house and there were no cookies in sight. When I was about 10, I went to my aunt and uncle's house in Sydney for Christmas. My cousin, who is a hairdresser, took over an hour to perfectly straighten my crazily curly long hair. I was thrilled with the result and couldn't wait to show off my new look. One of my presents that morning was a new set of pajamas, which I quickly changed into. As I walked out to the garden to show my mum my new pajamas, I tripped and fell into their pool, soaking my new PJs and ruining my perfectly straightened hair. I still remember the incident vividly, but when I brought it up to my mum once, she didn't remember it, so I've always questioned whether it really happened. That sounds like a classic holiday mishap. I'm curious, does your cousin remember the incident? Maybe they can shed some light on it. I'll never forget the time I stepped on a roofing nail and got a huge hole in my foot. I had to soak it every night for a month. My mom claims it never happened, but my dad and sister say it did. It's a strange feeling when you remember something so vividly, but the people closest to you can't seem to recall it at all. Haha, maybe it was a secret between your dad and sister, and they made a pact not to tell your mom. Just kidding. When I was about 8 years old, we were at a relative's cabin, and I went to go tell my dad it was lunchtime when I saw him standing stock still in the river. I called out to him, but he just slowly motioned for me to be quiet. I watched him standing there, looking into the water for maybe a full minute before he suddenly lurched into the water and snatched up an enormous carp. I just watched my dad hold on to this giant, glistening fish for several seconds before he threw it back into the river and waded out of the river like nothing had happened. He didn't say anything about it when we got back to the cabin, and we've never talked about it since. There's something magical or surreal about the fact that it was never spoken of again. Wow, that's an amazing memory. I wonder if you could ask your dad about it now and get some answers. Who knows, maybe he'll have a great fish story to share with you. I remember living next to an elderly couple who had grandkids that were either older or younger than me, so we didn't really play together. One day, I met a kid named Brian who was visiting his grandparents, and we talked through the fence separating our backyards. It was always awkward, and we mostly just played with our toys or looked at each other for hours. But every time I played with him, his grandfather would give me a strange look. We moved away shortly after, and when I brought up the memories with my family years later, they had no recollection of any grandkids my age. It's still creepy to think about. It's possible that the granddad gave you a strange look because he saw you talking to an imaginary friend. I have a vivid memory from my childhood of seeing a man lying in a puddle of blood at the bottom of a fountain in my city. The fountain had spikes, and it appeared that the man had fallen on them accidentally. I remember my mom and I walking away from the scene. However, when I asked my mom about it later on, she had no recollection of the event. It's strange that I have such a clear memory of something that might not have happened. You might want to check the news archives from that time period to see if there was any mention of the incident. It seems like something that would have been covered by the media. I remember seeing a thunderstorm one afternoon when I was younger than 8. I have a very clear memory of 2 lightning bolts colliding and forming a spherical cage of lightning in the sky for just a moment. I can remember the color of the sky, the room I was in, the way the air felt, and the shapes the lightning took. However, I haven't been able to find any examples of a similar phenomenon online. If anyone knows more about lightning, I'd love to hear their thoughts. It sounds like what you saw could have been ball lightning. When I was about 5 years old, I saw a huge black rain cloud in the sky that looked almost extraterrestrial. It reminded me of something out of an apocalypse movie. It was probably just a normal cloud, but the image stuck with me. I've seen clouds like that before too, and they always give me an eerie feeling. They look like something out of a horror movie. When my mom was having a baby, my grandma took care of me while I was sick. My stomach hurt, and I was throwing up when my grandma gave me Pepto Bismol to drink. I ended up throwing up pink. And the experience was so traumatizing that I still throw up every time I see or drink Pepto Bismol. I had a similar experience when I was a kid. I threw up after drinking Pepto Bismol once, and I haven't been able to stomach it since. I have a vivid memory of visiting my dad in the hospital after he was in a car accident. I remember seeing the bruises on his chest from the seatbelt and his old school hairstyle. He had a hip-to-ankle cast on his leg, which wasn't covered by the blanket, so I could see it. However, my mom was pregnant with me at the time, so there's no way I could actually remember the event. I'm starting to think my mom got her dates wrong. Have you tried asking your dad if he remembers the details of the hospital visit? It's possible that he could help confirm the timeline. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos.